Well, welcome back, everybody. Northwest Small Batch Brewing here. Welcome to part 2 of my video series on pressure fermenting, basically. By the way, what was I going to say? If you want to see part 1, too bad. No, I'm just kidding. I'll put a link up in the corner to part 1. I did that last week, and it's just too much to cover in one video. It's just too much, so I had to split it up. Ugh, I'm trying to get this sucker open. I clipped my nails, and I just can't get under the stupid can thing. This is a beer that I got from Beer Quan Nation. It's New Glarus Moonman. No Coast Pale Ale. So I've been trying to drink these, when I'm on with him, but unfortunately, I am bursting at the seams with beer, which is a good problem, but I need room, and so I'm going to drink this one on video at least, and he'll probably see it. So, where should we start? I can't even remember where I left off last time, but let's start this time with reasons for pressure fermenting an ale yeast. All right. Obviously, you can do lager. Oh boy. You know what? It's going to be a day. Hold that thought. Jeez, I need this beer now. All right. Reasons for pressure fermenting an ale yeast. First of all, I've talked about this, I think, in the last video, but you've got reduced esters, right? Like what you get in your Belgians, like banana flavors, stuff like that. If you want to reduce the esters, it'll help with that, right? A lot of ales depend on yeast ester to deliver their character and their flavor. But pressure gives you another tool to play with, like, for example, hazy IPAs, right? But maybe you want a slightly less character in your hazy IPA. Maybe you want a clean Kolsch with a little less of that white wine aroma that you get from the yeast. Maybe you're making a Scotch ale, but you want it with a little less of that clove phenolic bite. You can do that with pressure fermentation. Another reason for pressure fermenting with ale yeast is dry hopping. A lot of people have the thought of using pressurized headspace, right, to try to keep as much hop character in the beer as possible. However, let me explain that further. So if it's all CO2 and you're holding back that pressure, the feeling is that the hop aroma and whatnot and the character is going to stay more in the beer, as opposed to a beer that's just, has an airlock and it's bubbling away. And it's bubbling away all of the flavors that you want to keep in your beer. Well, the reality of that is there isn't really any science to that. Certainly doesn't hurt to try, but yeah, there's not been anything scientifically showing that doing it that way helps to keep in that hop flavor and aroma. Dry hopping under pressure, however, has actually produced beers with the opposite reaction, slightly muted hop character. So you may be dry hopping under pressure thinking you're doing a solid, and in fact, you're actually reducing the amount of hop character in your beer by dry hopping it under pressure. Something to think about. By the way, what do you think of the hat? I got this hat not too long ago. I think I want to get some more, but I don't know yet. I haven't decided. Anyway, so another reason here to pressure ferment is naturally carbonating your beer. All right. Now, I talked about this in the first video, and I talked about how there's a caveat to this, like naturally carbonating your beer while it ferments. I will go on record and say you can absolutely partially carbonate your beer. But fully carbonating it to the correct pressure and amount of carbonation while it's under pressure is nearly impossible to hit that right off. So to calculate the pressure that you want, you have to set your spunding valve. I had it here in front of me. Oh, here we go. It's off camera, but right, your spunding valve. You have to set your pressure on the spunding valve to naturally carbonate your beer, you just simply make use a standard carbonation table like you use for like setting your keg pressure. You determine the target volume of CO2 that you want, right, in your final beer. You set your spunding valve to the pressure from the spunding valve based on the table that you're, wanting, whatever pressure or whatever CO2 volume you want for your beer. And that's pretty straightforward, right? And it should carbonate your beer to that pressure, right? Well, not 100%. That's not 100% accurate. There's problems with this, right? Your fermenter has to be able to handle higher pressure. That's the first problem. I think I mentioned that before. Like this one only goes to 15 psi, right? You usually have to have it under higher pressure than that in order to have a beer fully carbonated by the time it's done fermenting. Yeah, so the higher the pressure fermentation can also cause flavor problems with your beer. You're not supposed to pressure ferment at, 30 psi, 35 psi, whatever, right? You're not supposed to ferment at that high a pressure. It can cause problems. So now you're messing with like your final product, and that's not good, right? Another potential workaround for this is you do like say most of your fermentation with spunding valve set to what I call pressure or serving pressure, right? Like 10 to 15 psi, your serving pressure. So you can ferment warm, but you suppress the esters, and you crank up the spunding towards the end of fermentation to try to trap that carbonation to the pressure you want. The problem is you have to have the confidence in predicting your final gravity and then dial that up with the pressure. So imagine you let it ferment at that lower pressure. Maybe you're trying to hold back and reduce esters or whatever. Say you're around 12 psi. Now you want to ramp it up towards the end of your fermentation so that you can fully carbonate your beer. So the problem is, by that point, there may not be much activity going on, and it may not be able to reach the pressure that you want. And sometimes it's just off-gassing. Sometimes it's not CO2. It could be sulfur and other things that you don't want to retain in your beer at the end there. So trapping that gas in there is not necessarily something you want to do. So when do you dial the pressure in? Well, a lot of studies that I was looking at recommend no pressure for, like I said, the first 24 hours, right? After you pitch your yeast. You heard me. So no pressure during that first 24-hour period at all. Just fully open on your spunding valve. Pressure stresses your yeast and makes them go. What you want to do is leave it open completely to let those yeast kind of go wild, right? It allows sulfur to off-gas and lets the yeast naturally start reproducing, and there's no stress holding them down. Right? Now, there's another issue, and that is cold crashing. Now, what I typically do is I love to pressure ferment in my kegerator. I'll just take the beer, put it in the kegerator, and there's no question that it's going to implode because you have it under pressure from the CO2. All right. Well, so pressure, let me see if I can explain this. Pressure is going to decrease inside the fermenter as you're cold crashing. So what'll happen is if you have this fully closed, it is going to try to suck in oxygen or the pressure is changing. So what happens is your fermenter, especially if it's plastic, is just going to start to crumple in on itself because it's trying to pull in. If there's enough CO2, right, and this is where I'm going to get to how to fix this, right, you can avoid the fermenter imploding during your cold crash by having about 15 psi in your headspace of your beer. So you can do that naturally if you're able to hold that much pressure all the way to the end, or you could just hook up your CO2 tank to it and bring it up to about 15 psi. This is why I just do it in the kegerator. I cold crash and start carbonating it in the kegerator, because that way, every time it starts to change pressure, it's drawing in CO2. It's not sucking the actual, it's not closed system. So instead of drawing in oxygen, it's drawing in CO2, which is what you want anyway, because you want that to carbonate your beer. So it keeps it from imploding, plus you get more CO2. Cold crashing does seem to take longer to clear the beer than traditional batches. So if you have a pressure fermented beer, it can take longer to clear if it's under pressure, and it was made that way. The other problem with pressure fermenting, and I'll probably end with this here on this video, is collecting yeast, right? Since you're fermenting under pressure, the pressure stresses the yeast cells, and you need to keep in mind that if you harvest the yeast, your number of viable repitches from a batch of yeast is going to decrease because it's been under pressure. So you can't collect it like a normal yeast and treat it like a normal yeast from a regular batch. If it's been under pressure, it's not as viable as regular yeast that you collect. I think that's about it. I have no idea how long this video has run, but it's long enough for me. I'll be back in a week with another video with another topic. And until then, keep on brewing. Cheers.